Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something that seems, well, pretty simple on the surface, ratatouille. But our sources, they tell a different story.
Oh, absolutely. You hear ratatouille, you think maybe a rustic veggie stew, right? Something easy.
Yeah, clean out the fridge kind of thing.
But in serious kitchens, it's actually known as this real test of a chef's discipline. Seriously.
A full examination of chef discipline is what we're hearing.
Yeah.
It tests everything, your knife skills, heat control, and maybe most of all, your patience.
Exactly. So look, our goal here today isn't about finding a basic recipe online. You can do that anytime.
Right.
We want to skip past that and dig into the specific, maybe even counterintuitive techniques, the stuff the pros actually use, the secrets that make it genuinely great.
The proof points, as they say. We want to give you that focused, expert insight.
And the core idea really is that this dish is all about how you do it. Technique and timing, the ingredients, simple. The execution, that's where the skill comes in.
Okay, let's start breaking down that discipline. Part one has to be the prep, right? Specifically, ingredient separation. Why is that the absolute first rule? Why not just chop and chuck it all in?
Well, because they're just fundamentally different. Think of the vegetables, like cousins maybe. They're related, they belong in the same final dish, but you cannot treat them identically.
Oh.
Your main players, eggplant, zucchini, peppers, they all react completely differently to heat and oil.
So what's the practical problem there? What happens if you ignore that?
The two big issues are eggplant and zucchini. Eggplant, well, it's basically a sponge, super porous. If you hit it with oil too early, it just drinks it all up before it even thinks about browning.
And you end up with soggy, oily pieces.
Totally, and that oiliness just bleeds into everything else. Then you've got zucchini, which does the exact opposite.
Ah, the water issue.
Precisely. Zucchini has so much water, heat hits it, and it just starts weeping liquid everywhere.
Okay, I see. So if you've got spongy eggplant and watery zucchini in the same pan early on.
You get a greasy, watery mess. Instantly. The flavors get diluted, nothing concentrates. So the pro technique is this. Short, separate cooking for each one first. Often just a quick sear.
Just to manage their individual quirks.
Yeah.
Stabilize them.
Exactly. Control the fat absorption in the eggplant, manage the water release from the zucchini, then they can mingle later in the tomato base.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, you've pre-treated them. Now, the cutting. The dorama bicini. I get that uniform cuts look nice in French food, but for a rustic stew, why is perfect uniformity so incredibly critical?
But it's not just about looks, though that's part of it. It's fundamental physics, really. Uneven pieces mean uneven cooking. It's as simple as that.
How so?
Well, think about heat transfer. A small piece is going to cook through much faster than a big chunk, right?
Right.
So if your sizes are all over the place, your little bits will burn or turn to complete mush, while your bigger pieces are still basically raw inside.
Okay, so function first.
Yeah.
Even cooking means perfect texture throughout. No mushy bits, no crunchy bits.
Correct. That perfect melt in your mouth, but still distinct texture. But then, yes, there is the visual aspect, the goût esthétique.
Visual aesthetics.
Even in something seemingly humble, the French standard demands that it looks intentional, cared for. Identical cuts show respect for the ingredients and, frankly, the chef's skill. It looks clean, appealing.
Okay, moving into part two, the technical stuff. Heat and oil. This is where it gets really interesting and honestly kind of backwards for most home cooks, myself included. Olive oil timing. Why is just pouring all your oil in at the start a big mistake?
Yeah, that's the classic home cook move, isn't it? Get it all in there. But it's a mistake born from, well, impatience, usually.
Guilty.
See, in the pro method, the oil actually does two very different jobs. One is for searing, the other is for carrying aroma, and these jobs happen at different times.
Okay, explain that.
If you dump all the oil in at the beginning, the long, slow cooking process actually degrades its delicate aromatic compounds. You basically cook off the fragrance.
So how do you split it up then?
You hold back most of it, maybe 2/3 of your total oil. You only use a small amount, say 1/3, right at the start for that quick, separate searing of the vegetables we talked about.
Just enough to get the texture right.
Exactly. That initial oil gets sacrificed, you could say, for texture. Then, the rest of the oil.
When does that go in?
Much later, towards the very end of the slow cooking, maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes, or sometimes even drizzled on right before it goes to the table.
And why then?
Because that oil hasn't been cooked for ages. It still has its full, fresh, vibrant, grassy or fruity smell. Our sources call the effect simple yet profound. It adds this bright aromatic layer right on top of the deep cooked flavors.
Wow, okay. That's a seriously clever trick. It changes how you even think about all of them. So from oil,
Yeah.
let's talk temperature. People making stews often crank the heat, right? Get it
Ex-
bubbling away.
Yeah.
But Ratatouille demands the opposite, low and slow.
Yes, absolutely. High heat is your enemy with ratatouille. You're aiming for what's called confit, essentially slow cooking in its own juices and a little fat.
And high heat messes that up how?
It forces the water out of the vegetables way too aggressively. The cell walls just burst, so you end up boiling them in their own diluted liquid rather than gently coaxing the flavor out. The texture suffers, the flavor is weak.
But cooking slowly, on low heat, what's happening chemically or physically that makes the flavor so much better?
It's a much gentler process. Think of it like osmosis almost. The vegetables soften gradually, they release their juices slowly, but because the heat is low, that liquid doesn't evaporate rapidly.
So the flavor concentrates in that small amount of liquid.
Exactly. It intensifies beautifully. You get this deep, layered flavor profile instead of something watery and, frankly, boiled tasting. It takes patience, yes, but it fundamentally changes the final taste.
Which leads us nicely into part 3,
Yeah.
the payoff. Layered flavor, Catman Ledvalesa. This seems to be the real dividing line between a pro version and, a quick weeknight attempt.
Absolutely. This is the direct result, the reward for all that careful separation and searing you did back in part 1.
How so?
Because each vegetable, the eggplant, the zucchini, the peppers, was cooked just right on its own first. Their individual character, their texture, it remains distinct even when they're finally combined in the sauce.
Meaning they don't just collapse into one uniform flavor. You can still taste the difference.
Precisely. You get the softness of the eggplant, maybe a little sweetness from the peppers, the tender bite of the zucchini. They complement each other instead of just becoming this single homogeneous vegetable mush.
Which is what happens in a quick one-pot version.
Always. You just can't achieve that depth, that textural interest. If everything cooks together from the start, every spoonful should be a little different,
Okay, let's talk about the thing holding these layers together.
Yeah.
The tomato sauce. It's the soul of the dish, right? We know the usual suspects, thyme, bay, garlic, build the foundation. But sources point to one tiny, crucial addition for balance. What is it?
It's just a pinch of sugar. Seems minor, but it's absolutely vital.
Not to make it sweet, though.
No, not at all. You shouldn't taste sweetness. The sugar is there purely to balance the natural acidity of the tomatoes. Tomatoes can be quite sharp, quite tangy.
So it's like a technical adjustment.
Exactly. It's about creating what chefs call tat yumu flavor harmony. By carefully managing that acidity with a tiny bit of sugar, the tomato sauce becomes smoother, richer. It stops tasting sharp.
And that lets the vegetable flavors come through better.
Perfectly. The balanced sauce becomes this beautiful soft background that allows the individual notes of the eggplant, zucchini, and peppers to really sing instead of being drowned out by tartness. It's subtle, but it makes a huge difference to the overall harmony.
Harmony. That leads perfectly to the last bit of patience required. The rule of rest. Dilendir me curalo. I'm so guilty of this, pulling a stew off the stove and immediately dishing it up. Why is that wrong for ratatouille?
You and pretty much everyone else. But yeah, it's a big mistake here. Ratatouille is one of those dishes that is not meant to be eaten piping hot straight from the pot. It needs to rest.
How long are we talking?
Minimum 15 to 20 minutes off the heat, sometimes even longer. It needs time for the flavors to, settle. Laissez auteur is the phrase. The flavor sits down, gets comfortable.
What's actually happening during that rest? Is it just cooling?
It's more than just cooling. The residual heat is still doing some gentle work, yes. But mainly, it's allowing all those complex flavor molecules, all those distinct layers we worked so hard to build the seared veg, the balanced sauce, that late addition of aromatic oil thyme to meld and integrate properly.
So they come together without losing their individual character.
That's the idea. They unify, the flavors deepen and round out. There's a great saying chefs have: ratatouille left over until the next day is the chef's true reward.
Wow.
Now, maybe you don't need to wait that long for dinner, but it highlights the principle. Resting is crucial. Don't rush it. Let patience finish the job.
Okay, final step. It tastes amazing, but it also has to look amazing. French food, even rustic stuff, has to be sade ama gurulu. Simple but proud. How do you keep the vegetables looking vibrant and glossy, not dull and wilted after all that slow cooking?
Ah, yes, the final polish. This is non-negotiable for a pro. You want those colors bright, the green zucchini, the red pepper, the purple eggplant skin maybe, and you get a nice sheen, a glossiness.
So after cooking low and slow, possibly for quite a while, What's the trick to stopping them looking tired?
It's all about managing steam right at the end. Think about it. During that long, slow cook, even covered, a lot of steam builds up inside the pot.
Right.
If you keep that lid clamped on tight until the very end, all that trapped, hot, humid steam continues to cook the vegetables quite aggressively, even if the heat source is low or off. That residual steam cooking is what ruins the color and makes things wilt.
So the moisture itself becomes the enemy of vibrancy.
Exactly. So the secret technique is, near the very end of cooking, you take the lid off, or at least crack it significantly. You need to vent that excess steam. Let it escape Usurmak.
And what does venting achieve?
It immediately stops that intense, humid cooking environment. The vegetables cool slightly, they stop cooking so rapidly, they hold their shape better. And crucially, that surface moisture evaporates a little, which allows the oil, especially that lovely aromatic oil you added late, to coat the vegetables properly and give them that beautiful, vibrant shine.
Incredible. So literally every single stage, from the first knife cut to taking the lid off at the end, is deliberate. It's all technique aimed at maximizing these simple ingredients.
It brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Ratatouille really is a test of precision, patience, and fundamentally respect for each ingredient. The value isn't in finding some rare, exotic vegetable.
No, it's in understanding the difference between eggplant and zucchini.
Exactly. Knowing how to handle them individually, timing the oil, controlling the heat, giving it that rest. It's discipline applied to simplicity.
So, thinking beyond the kitchen, what's the bigger takeaway here? It really feels like a lesson in handling complexity, doesn't it?
I think so. Whether it's cooking or, I don't know, managing a project, maybe even a relationship. Sometimes the best results come not from rushing everything together, but from separating the parts.
Giving each component the specific attention it needs.
Right. Addressing its unique properties first, getting it right individually, and then carefully combining them later with patience. That's how you often achieve real depth, real harmony.
Instead of just stirring it all together in one pot, hoping for the best.
We do tend to do that, don't we? Aim for the quick stir, the one-pot solution, thinking it's efficient. But sometimes, maybe often, true quality requires acknowledging differences, treating things individually, even if it takes more time and care.
Which leaves a really interesting question for you, our listener, to maybe chew on. If a dish based on simple vegetables needs this much discipline, this much careful layering and timing, what other parts of your life, your work, your goals, maybe even how you approach problems, are you currently treating like a single quick-stirred pot when they might actually need that more patient, layered individual attention? Something to think about until our next deep dive.